I've already taken a look at some of the other connectors used in the entertainment industry for distributing the final circuits to the lighting. But I thought it'd be interesting to take a look at some of the daddy connectors that are used to provide the power to all the equipment in the first place. And these are power lock connectors. Power lock has become a generic name. These ones are particularly called Powersafe. And the website address for these ones, because they generously sent them for us to make a video about and take a look at, www.p3connectors.com. I shall put a link to that down below, just in case you have need for very high current electrical supplies for industrial uses. So the point we start using these is typically above 125 amps on our three-phase supply, because by the time you get to 125 amp three-phase cable, it's like 5 cores in a common heavy flex, and it's got the 5 pins in the connector, and it starts getting quite hard to make the connectors. It starts getting quite heavy to lift long runs of those cables. So for the higher current supplies, like the 400 amp to the generator or substation or distribution panel, they switch to using single cores. And there are, you have to be quite careful when you're using these. You have to make sure they're all mated in the correct sequence to avoid phase imbalance, because there is a possibility that if you were to just pull the neutral one out, then you would leave a floating neutral in a three-phase system, which can damage equipment. So there are quite strict rules to using these things. But the payoff for that is the ease of installation, because instead of carrying that huge, I can't imagine, like typically this would take a 120 millimeter or 150 millimeter cross-sectional area conductor, and if you can imagine a flex with 5 of those in it would be enormous. So the payoff here is that it just makes it a lot easier just to drag these along the ground or unroll them along the ground one at a time and connect them up. Now, they do have a safety device in the end. I'm not going to poke the ends of these ones because they're not locked yet. I want to show you what's inside. I want to show you how they're terminated. So let's take a look at the panel ones. And if we look up the end, you can't really poke your finger in there. It's pretty solid. And likewise, this is the what they call the source, the power outlet. And this, rather oddly, is called the drain. It's the sort of power inlet. And it's got a spring-loaded plunger here that's designed, it's got a spike in the middle. It's designed to deter kiddies poking their fingers into the end of it. Not that there should really be kiddies in that area. When you push them together, though, this pin retracts and allows the pin of the female connector here. That is an oddity. This is effectively female contact, and this is the male contact, but this is the source connector. But they call it the source and the drain, and that's quite, if you're used to electronics, a MOSFET has source, drain and gate. It's nothing like that at all. The source in this instance is the overall source of AC power, and the drain is where that power is going. And when these mate together, they've got various safety features and security features. They've got O-rings, not just on the outside, but also the barrel on the inside, I'll show you that later, has an O-ring too, because they are pretty resilient to weather, these connectors. They are designed for outdoor use. They're used ship-to-shore power, where you dock a ship and you want to provide power from a substation next to the docks. And they're also used in factories or quarries for industrial equipment for connecting it. And I'm trying to think, what's another typical use of these? I just had that in my mind there, and it's gone. Generators for temporary power. That includes when you're connecting to generators to overhead lines. You'd typically have a set of tails with a power lock that go into the generator. If your generator is capable of supplying more current, then it's not uncommon, because it would be unwieldy to go up any bigger with connectors. It's not uncommon to have rows of just a single phase but multiple cores just running parallel between the generator and the equipment you're feeding, just to actually keep the cable size down and allow that high current to be transferred easily and all the cables to be installed easily. So let's take a look at these mating. And as I push them together, this pin is going to retract inside, and they are keyed. Only the L1, the brown connector here, will match with the matching brown connector. And note this little metal pin here. Watch as I push it in. It takes a bit of pressure. Push it in, twist, and it pops into that little slot there. And that's it latched. It means it can't twist out and spring out accidentally. You have to make a deliberate effort to remove that. Unfortunately, in some cheaper connectors, these pins do occasionally get damaged. That's largely because of people using brute force to try and get them out, pushing multi-tools and stuff in. You do get a tool, which is a little thumb slide that pushes that in as you hold the connector, but unfortunately they're very rarely seen. But I've just pushed that in with a slight bit of rotational pressure. That lets me swing it around here, and then it will apart with quite a lot of force because it is spring-loaded with that stout spring to keep fingers out. Impressive. So it's these slots on the back of it that are part of the keying system. If you tried to get the green earth connector into the L1 connector, it wouldn't go in. It's designed to defeat that sort of thing. Things worthy of note though, you have to connect them in the correct sequence. And this is something you just have to get it into your head. There are automated systems for this. There are mechanical interlocks, so you are forced to connect them in the correct sequence. The correct sequence for connecting these things is you put the green earth one in first. Then that's the reason you put that in first is it's a safety conductor. You want to ground everything, bring it to equipotential before any of the other connectors put in. The next connector you put in is the blue one, because these are all color coded to the phases, neutral, earth. And the reason you put the neutral in next is so that there is a solid neutral reference to the phases. You don't want to start putting the phases in until you've got a solid neutral reference, because if you have a floating neutral, it can cause damage to electronic equipment and electrical equipment. So once you've got the earth, the green earth, the blue neutral, and this is the European colours by the way, you then start putting the phases in, L1, L2 and 3, brown, black and grey. And there is a mechanical system that will only let you put them in that sequence. Once you've locked the green one in, then the shutter goes down for the blue one, then you can put the blue one in, the shutter goes down for the next phase, and basically speaking, it forces you to put them in the correct way. But in many instances, you could put them in any way round, and even if a system is unpowered, it makes sense to actually get into that habit of doing it in the correct sequence, in case one day you do disconnect or connect something, and the power is on and it damages equipment. The disconnecting sequence is in reverse. You disconnect the phases first, then the neutral, and the final conductor that comes out is the earth. Worth mentioning that. It's just one of those things that you have to get that in your mind. That's always the way you do it, even if it is unpowered, just because you want to get it into sort of memory, so to speak. Let's take a look at the inside of these and how they're terminated. So if I unscrew this gland at the back, I can push out the insert inside. And this is the source side, which is this spring ring round the side of these little teeth that basically stick up. And they're the bits that are going to actually bite into the other connector when you when you actually put them together. If I take off the other one, it is the drain. No, this is the, let me think. This is the annoying thing, that because it uses source and drain instead of saying feed and load would have been so much easier. I wonder why they chose it that way. By the way, this is the socket end, which is usually the load that's being plugged in. And when you actually make these together, I'll show you what it looks like out of the case, so to speak. This plunger here pushes back, this slides down, and then the metal physically just bites in those teeth as it connects in and makes a solid connection. It's very solid. I've never had one of these fail, which is quite good. It's impressive given the amount of current they can potentially handle. Let's talk about the termination of these. To terminate them, you loosen off the grub screws that clamp the wire, and you have a ferrule. The cable is fed through the gland first, don't forget that, and stripped at the end, and then you put this ferrule over the strands. That then goes into the back of the contact here, and then these contacts are tightened down and displace the ferrule. They actually push it down, it grips tightly onto the strands and brings them all together, basically self-crimping effectively. Once you've done that, you insert it back in. Here's the O-ring, by the way, that keeps this waterproof. You insert it back into the connector, noting this hole. This hole is quite important. It has to line up with this hole. So you put it in like this, and then that is locked in place with a plastic pin that goes through the casing, through the pin inside, and then you tap it in till it pops out the other side flush, and then that is effectively the connector locked in. You can see these pins that have been used to lock this in here. The same goes for the other one. It gets terminated in the same way. It gets inserted and that pin put through to lock it in place. Things worthy of note. I'm trying to think, have I covered most things? Cable sizes, depending on your application, you might not need the full 400 amps. You might just need, say, 200 amps or something like that. In that instance, you could probably use you can get these with pre-terminated from power distribution companies. Pre-terminated with 70mm cross-sectional area. You get them terminated with 95mm, 120mm and 150mm, depending on your application. They're very good, very, very rugged. They're actually quite easy to put in. One slight gripe I've got about one job that comes to mind is that when somebody's specifying to use connectors like this, make sure that they know how they work, because there's one job that comes to mind where they mounted them down the way underneath a panel, and they mounted them not just pointing down in a really cramped area, but right up against a wall, so that you can't get your fingers around the back of them, and it makes them very hard to put in. But that's just one job I can think of that's like that, that I do regularly, and it's quite one annoying box, and it is really annoying. Other things worth mentioning. Yes. These are the panel mounting ones. Typically, in a dimmer room, if you had a rack of dimmers, each dimmer will have a 400 amp input. It doesn't necessarily use all the 400 amps, but it will also then have an output. So you'd have the load connector, which the drain connector, on the rack, but then you'd also have the source connectors. And you could, if you wanted to fan it out, you could have the one drain that's feeding the rack, and then you could have two source connectors above it. And because of the spacing of the bolt at the back and the body, it means that you can run a bus bar up the back of these. And by doing that, you bridge them all together, one bus bar per phase. And it means that in the case of just having two connectors, it means that you can, if you've got a dimmer rack, you can take your 400 amp feed into the rack, then you can split out from the other connector with the full current available, loop into the next rack and just keep looping on. So it's basically like a flexible bus bar system. And likewise, if you've got two of these connectors, you can then fan out, you could take the power into a central position and fan out either way. They're very, very useful, very easy to connect once you're used to them. But still, they do require quite a lot of pressure to put in and twist and make sure they lock properly. But they're very impressive connectors, very useful. They make what could have been a really complex job easy. Having worked with companies that originally did it the old school way with steel wire armours that they reused every year, which was just an absolute chore to re-terminate those. Coming across the more modern companies that use the Powerlock tails that just loop together like this is just an absolute dream for connecting high power stuff up. So as I say, if you have an application that you require a means of connecting a 400 amp supply or so to industrial equipment that you want to be able to plug and unplug easily, then Powerlock is definitely a very good choice of connector for that. It does require professional use. It's not something you want just any old person plugging, unplugging because of that connecting up in sequence type thing. But for industrial use, they're a fantastic connector, really rugged, and they do the job very well.